it can't be this good, right? Like something's got to happen. And I'm smart enough to know, like you don't live forever. And that's the other thing that's inextricably attached to the lifestyle is mortality. You're always you're living large because every moment could be your last.
That, of course, was actor, director, producer, and musician Adrian Grenier. You likely know him from roles in Entourage, where they did, I think, 8 seasons, maybe The Devil Wears Prada. In this particular episode, Adrian does what I think is a very courageous and interesting thing in that he pulls back the curtain on Hollywood and, more importantly, what it takes to reinvent yourself as a human being. This is Adrian Grenier. So let's have a little catch up here. Last time I was standing in your kitchen, you shared new direction in life, and you've since married. You guys ran off and married, which is incredible. Congratulations. And boy, you nailed it, man. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. In retrospect, what a harrowing adventure, man. I was so many near misses. I barely made it out alive.
But you did, and here you are. And one of the things I want to talk about today is a little bit of reinvention. I am very, very excited at what you're working on, and I was trying to recount our original connection story, and it goes back a long time. I actually couldn't remember it. I think we've tried to do this in previous episodes, so I won't bore the audience. But suffice to say, you're like at 9 lives, and you're on, I don't know, maybe like 6. What do you think?
Yeah, at least
6?
a few.
Few. And your most recent project is in some ways a return to the earth. But this is not what I think most people think of when they think of you. And I'm curious if you can start us off on our show today. Welcome back, by the way. Second or third time you've been on the show. If you can orient our listeners and watchers to a little bit of your journey. I think they know you as someone who spent a lot of time in Hollywood, and not that you're not Hollywood now, but you're doing something a lot different. And I'm interested to hear your description of this arc.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I recognize that I live in the hearts and the memories of many people as sort of a monolithic personality of like the Lothario, Vincent Chase, the womanizer, the celebrity. And even though I've changed so much, I still run into people and they still treat me as such. They treat me as if I'm still that guy, because that's how I've sort of been etched in their minds, which is fine because I'm really proud of having gone through that journey and been on a show that was that defined a generation with an iconic character. And yeah, I'm very proud of that. But I have to say that journey was not without its flaws, and that the just the challenge of making it, so to speak, of being successful in that industry requires you to sort of give over yourself, your identity, into a character, into multiple characters, right? And in order to be successful, you have to become famous, because really they're not paying you to act. They're paying you to get people to turn on the television and watch the show. They're paying you to get people into the seats at movie theaters. They're paying for eyeballs. And we all have a broad understanding of this now, that media has been democratized and everybody is now trying to get the attention and the likes. But that's what the old school industry used to do. It used to trade in attention. And that attention,
Mm,
as I started to grow and build in my career, that attention I grew, and then it became extremely addictive and seductive.
mm,
And I found myself um, sort of losing the script of my. Well, I guess I would argue I don't even know if I knew what my deeper purpose or drive was, because I was so busy trying to please others or get the part or make money and serve whatever ego that I was looking to indulge in at the time. So I really had to strip everything away and go back to square one, go back to like that inner child, go back to the very, very basic, building blocks of what it is to be alive. And that was a very tough time to have to um, go through that ego death and then rebuild. And I when I finally rebuilt, and I went through a series of decisions that were finally my own, I found myself on a patch of earth outside of Austin, Texas, 46 acres, and living a lot closer to nature and learning how to grow food and learning how to work the land so that it can become an abundant um, sanctuary for me and my family. Was that too abstract?
that was no, it's beautiful, and I want to excavate a little bit, a couple of those different pieces, and fill in the blanks for anyone who might not know. So Entourage was it like 10 seasons or something like that?
Yeah, 99 episodes, 8 seasons, a
8 seasons,
decade. Yeah,
a decade, and a feature film. You guys did the feature film. I just saw it.
a
Doug
film,
Allen posted
correct.
that that's now available on HBO. So we've had other um, actors such as yourself on the show, Jared Leto, Matthew McConaughey, and there is a reluctance to talk about this journey. It's seemingly to me from the outside. I guess I have a number of friends who are in the Hollywood universe. There's a reluctance to talk publicly about this journey that you talked about, the ego. Um, in many ways, what's required. You're trading a lot of your I don't know, maybe freedom is the wrong word, but you're trading something for the ability to put people in seats, and that comes at a price. Why are you now talking about that? Did it take leaving the industry for some period of time? Did it take some internal reflection? Like, what's the change, and why is there a reluctance to? I mean, I guess Jim Carrey has talked about it at great
Yeah,
length,
yeah.
but so few people. Is it because it's the thing that's nurturing you, or like, what? Talk to me about this. It's a strange phenomenon.
Yeah, I think there's this illusion that people want to uphold, that somehow they have something that they deserve over everybody else.
Mm,
I'll tell a story that this sort of illustrates it, right? Because it's all a big show, and they make money. They gain leverage and position and status by making everyone believe that somehow they're special, or that they are better than, or that they deserve the part. And not to take away from the skills and the talent of the actor or the performer, but again, there are a lot of great performers who never make it, right? So that's it's not just about talent, it's about
yeah.
talent plus this game you play. And I I got the talent, fine. But then I was playing the game too, and the game started to become less interesting to me. And I guess I'm a rebel, but by nature. In fact, I made that movie Teenage Paparazzo, which basically pulled the curtain back and was like, "This shit is crazy. Like, let's look at this
Yeah.
on a deeper level." So this is maybe just one step further down that road. Um, but this story is, I was at a club And, I was having a great time as I normally would do on a Tuesday. and and they were paying me to be at the club. So they were paying me exorbitant amounts of money, tens of thousands of dollars to go party at a club and have a good time. Like, what better gig could a person ask for, right? Get paid hand over fist just to, party. So I show up, and they had me in this VIP section, and they had these velvet ropes, and then these bodyguards were like standing there to protect me, right? Because, I'm famous and there were a lot of people gawking, and everybody was crowded up against the velvet ropes, taking pictures and looking. And I'm in there all by myself, alone. And I was like, I came here to get paid, really, but I also want to have fun. So I told the bouncers, I was like, just remove the ropes. And in fact, I'm like looking at their asses. I'm like, why don't you guys just move aside? You guys aren't. I'm good. I can take care of myself. So they remove the ropes. The bouncers leave, and the crowd starts coming. And at first they're asking for autographs, and I'm like, no, I'm just here to dance. Like, okay, so they give up on that. Next thing you know, I'm just like everyone else. And slowly they begin to become disinterested in me, because suddenly we're all on the same level, and I'm not so special anymore. I'm just the guy next that they're dancing with. And it sort of just brought me down to earth, and then brought everybody together. And it was a great time, but it was a problem for the club, and they never invited me back, because for them, there's value in having something unattainable that attracts everybody. And if I don't remain as that, on a pedestal, then I have no value. So there's I think there's a subconscious desire to continue the conceit that you are somehow above on a pedestal. And that's why they always play these games with the paparazzi. Like, oh, you can't get me. Don't take my picture. Like, oh, I'm too special for you to take a picture. But yet, then they take the picture, because you got
Yeah.
to give
What
it
is it?
away a little
No,
bit.
stop. Right? And you're waving
Right.
them on. Yeah.
Yeah, and frankly, that life was going to kill me, or at least I was going to die without having anything to show for it, i.e., something really meaningful, which is family. That's the thing that makes life worth it all. Community and family, and also the story of separation that we've been playing in our lives and in the world, and on a societal level, that we're somehow separate from each other, that there's us against them, that nature is something we can exploit, that we're that we can somehow control our experience because it's other than. And it's coming down to earth and getting into self, and then realizing that self really is just an extension of nature, and that you really truly feel at home. You really truly have a place in the world when you are grounded in yourself, and then in nature and with family. So I decided I just wanted to have a more spiritual life. And it's really not that hard. You just got to let go of all the good stuff, all the fun stuff.
Yeah. I get it. Now, was this is a leading question, so I don't even know how. I'll just admit that it's a leading question and stop and rephrase. So I feel like I've known each of these incarnations, and I've seen it be a process for you over a long period of time. When you were still doing a lot of the Hollywood stuff, you had launched a nonprofit, which
You were
was
there, man. I just
one.
want to
Yeah,
remind
yeah.
you, you were
No,
there.
yeah, no. And again, you were still doing Entourage when we first started spending time together more than a decade ago. But having watched this incarnation, was it a moment? I mean, you told the story about the club, but was it a moment, or was it a series of 100 moments and letting go for you to feel like you have, I don't know, rebirth? I don't know. You tell me what the description is. Was it a one decision, or was it 1,000 decisions? Or was it difficult? Number two, and then how do you talk about it now? What are you
Yeah.
now?
I mean, there's always there were for many years there was this gnawing dread, like when's the other shoe gonna drop? Like life is it can't be this good, right? Like something's got to
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
and I'm smart enough to know, like you don't live forever, and that's the other thing that's inextricably attached to the lifestyle is mortality. You're always you're living large because every moment could be your last. And so you're almost living because you have this unhealthy relationship to doom and death. So you always got to consume, accumulate because, tomorrow, who knows what's going to happen. And there's this sort of nihilism, I think, attached to it. And one day I realized, my girlfriend of 4 years, I thought we'd get married, or I thought we'd be together forever and have kids, except we were in an open relationship. And to me, it seemed perfectly logical. Like, yeah, we'll continue to live young forever and be eternally youthful, and we'll have a family and all the other things. So just a little bit ignorant in the reality of that. And she turned around one day and was like, that's not going to work for me. Yeah, I think she knew the challenges of family and kids, and you just can't continue to indulge in the same ways if you really want to be a responsible adult in the room. So she dumped me, and I was perplexed. I was like, what? That's I'm in the top of my game. I have money. I'm handsome. Like, what are you doing? You're crazy. And she basically just laid it on the line and told me all the reasons why and all the things that I should probably look at in order to better myself. And her leaving me was really the rock bottom that people talk about. It was that what I call the cosmic bitch slap across the face, in which I was just shook. And it was after that I began to pull at the thread of self-discovery, and I realized, man, I was really off track. I was totally off track. And around that period, I tell the story. I was on a plane, a private plane from like some oligarch who had to been like 85 years old, and we were like going to Cannes or something, or some festival, and it was going to be fun. And he was on the plane with like 6 or 7 like Russian models or something. They were like young, hot, and he's like 85 years old. And there was just this passive thought where I was thinking, man, this guy's the man. Like, I hope that I can be like that one day. I hope that I can be 85 and flying around and still living as large as he is. And that was a perfectly logical thought in my head at the time. And then when I thought back, I realized, holy shit, like I just doomed myself, because I believe in manifestation. When you think something, it will happen. You will make it happen. And I have made so many things happen. And I realized, fuck, I'm going to be that guy on that plane virtually alone, because certainly those women weren't there for him. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but chances are there's some sort of quid pro quo involved. And where's his family? Where are his kids? And I shuddered, and I was horrified, because I realized, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. And at that moment I realized I didn't even know what I wanted. It wasn't that, but I was headed straight for that. So I had to just start stripping away, taking away all of the things that had been seducing me and distracting me and numbing me out from experience. And once I did that, once I started to get clean, so to speak, of all the dopamine hits that I'd been plotting around my day, suddenly was that dread, that top layer of dread. And then below that dread was sheer horror of all of the pain that I'd been avoiding and escaping from since I was probably 8 years old.
Wow, 8. So,
Yeah.
well,
I
yeah,
mean,
okay. No, thank you for sharing that. At If you look back to 8 and then you fast forward to being on the plane, this small series of realizations that you're talking about, the destruction of the ego, or the peeling away of the onion, you have a cathartic moment there. Then you start to do the work, and you mentioned early in your sort of opening salvo, finding yourself on a piece of land outside of Austin, Texas. So what do you now, having looked back at the process that you went through, having uh, Jordan, yeah, her name is public, having Jordan um,
Jordan, yeah.
leave you and say, you got, this is what you're hungering for, is something I'm not interested in. And so describe this, I guess, do you go into a cocoon? Do you go inward at this point? And are you doing a lot of work? And if so, what are you calling that work? And um, what do you call this? Yeah, this period. And what kind of work are you doing? And obviously, we're leading to redemption here in the hero's journey. But talk about this little encapsulate this little moment for us.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it personal development work, men's work. I had to grow the fuck up and become a man. And a lot of times in our society, particularly growing up in New York and spending a lot of time in liberal cultures, um, there's this amorphous definition of what a man is. And I was certainly living that. I was very femme. I was very in touch with my emotions. I was a feminist. I was a I was a only child of a single mother. And yet I was there. I was leaving a lot on the table, a lot of aspects of my masculinity that was not yet brought to the you know that brought online. And so I think in those ways I needed to figure out what it was that I was escaping. And
Mm.
it really was some childhood trauma that I guess at a young age I decided I didn't want to feel anymore. I didn't want to be present for, so I just would escape. And then coming back into that, I had to face a lot of those demons, a lot of that darkness. And the way I was able to do that is by really truly coming alive as a man. And it's not it's when I say masculinity and man, it's not like macho or mustache or like big muscles. It's really just decision making, being able to be decisive, making choices, and standing for something, being a stand for something, and being
Mm.
a protector.
Mm.
And at first I had to learn to be a protector for myself and take care of myself. And also it's about being honest. Masculinity for me is about being able to face truth and be fully, absolutely honest. So I think toxic masculinity, which is what I was engaged in many ways, was, lying and deceit and, um, you know, being
Ego, yeah, ego, and
definitely ego. So the ego is just basically the posturing, the pretending like you're a man. And I would pretend to women that I was going to be there, and then I'd bounce, or I would let them walk home alone, because I was somehow a feminist. I was like, well, you can take care of yourself, right? Even though it's
yeah,
like dark and dangerous out there. I'm like, this is the way I was thinking. This is the way I was conditioned. So I had to really sort of aim to become the man that I never had the opportunity to become, that I never had the role models to guide me, the rite of passage to step into that manhood. And in fact, like the men in my life were toxic in many ways. They were either absent. My father, left, didn't know him. And then my mom's boyfriends were secretly like teaching me how to womanize, on the side, or how to lie or get away with things. And then some men were just straight up inappropriate with me sexually, and like just like not teaching me the right ways to respect women. So the way I had to do that was, first of all, shed all the distraction, all of the noise. So get like quiet the mind, because we as humans are very good at finding ways to avoid the things that are uncomfortable. And so meditation was part of that. Um, Finding a new friend group, or at least getting rid of the friends that were not looking out for my best interest, but were looking to indulge me in the same patterns. I stopped drinking. I stopped indulging in sex and masturbation. And when you don't have all of this noise and you can just sit in the quiet, suddenly there's a lot that come up. There's a lot that finally just surfaces when you have a chance to listen to what your body is saying, and when you can drop into your body and start to feel. Because I was all in my head too. I was all
Yeah.
cock and head, you know, like pontificating intellectually and like rationalizing everything, creating fantasies, and then whatever drive was in my groin, and I was like, oh, listen to that. That sounds good. And when I started to finally drop into a quieter place, I started to feel things in my body that I'd all been, unattuned to. And when I started feeling that stuff, I was like, "Oh, I don't like this emotion, or I don't like this or that." But once I could face it, and I could stand and really behold all of that trauma that I had endured and covered up, and finally pushed through that, it opened up a whole level of sentience and awareness and intuition, so that you realize that our bodies are picking up information from the world and universe constantly. It's not just what you see in your eyes, or what you hear, or what you think in your head, or what you feel in your hips, but just all the data and all of the wisdom that you're picking up. So when I started listening to my body and hearing what my intuition was wanting and pushing me and like guiding me towards, I started making better decisions. And in fact, just like putting your hand on a fire, when I started going into old patterns of self-destruction, or destructiveness generally, it started to feel uncomfortable. Whereas before, I would just do it because it was habit, or because I knew I was going to get dopamine payoff, or get laid or something. But then I would start going into those patterns, and I'd be like, oh, that doesn't feel good, that's wrong. And then suddenly now I have a moral compass that was keeping me going in the direction that I truly wanted, which was to become a divine expression of father, and become a man.
Mm. I know you did a lot. I know personally from other conversations around the dinner table that you experienced a lot of that the quiet out there in the middle of Texas. And I watched this journey that you talked about as from a friend. I was one of the friends. I hope that you didn't escort to the edge of your life. I've been able to remain, but what I observed is starting to be in service of others in the land, and building deeper, real, meaningful relationships. It would get cut through the surface. So that has manifested in a handful of different projects in this new universe. I'm wondering if you can now help us. Is there a direct connection between you understanding more about yourself and this journey toward, I don't know, authenticity? Maybe that's a word that's a little bit loaded, but what are the things that interest you now? What are things that you're focused on, and assuming that those are now a lot more in line with the person that you wanted to become?
So besides meditation and adjusting my friend group and reading philosophers and all sorts of personal development books and that sort of thing, I also did a lot of woo stuff as well. And in fact, I went to see a psychic.
Mm.
And listen, man, it all
Dude,
works. It's all
hey,
medicine if
it's all
you
medicine.
if you set the right intentions, because you know that we're we're storytelling beings, and when a psychic tells you this story, whether or not you believe it or it's true, there's wisdom in it. You can unpack it and utilize it. So anyway, I went to this psychic and she went into a trance, and she held a meeting with all my spirit guides. And she gathered them around, and I'm sitting there watching her, and her eyes are like rolling behind her head, and she's talking in tongues, and she's literally dialoguing with all of my spirit guides, many of whom are demons. And she's
Mm.
like, she comes back into like this plane, and she goes, okay, so I'm talking to your spirit guides. A couple of them are like not like savory characters. They're pretty monstrous. And you called them into your sphere to protect you when you were a young boy. Do you still need them, or can I tell them to bounce? Can I like dismiss them? And I said, yeah. I mean, sure. I tell them to go. She's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, of course. And then she goes back into her trance and she's talking in tongues. And now it hits me. I'm like, shit. I Do I need them? Like, what's going to happen if they're no longer protecting me? Like, am I in danger? Like, who's going to protect me? And then I realized, like, oh, I got to protect me. I got to do it. So she comes back out of the trance. She's like, okay, they're gone. You're on your own. And then I'm like, well, okay, like,
Whoa,
what do
whoa,
I do
whoa!
now?
Time out.
It's like, wait a minute, call him back.
Where's my
I was,
posse?
I said, well, what do I do now? And she said, you need to get in the dirt. I was like, what? She goes, you are so ungrounded. You're, floating, 30 feet off the ground. You need to come down to earth and get in your body and get into the earth. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So as part of my whole restructuring of my life and my lifestyle, I left the business. I went on hiatus from acting. I shut down like all the businesses that I'd been dabbling in. I left New York and my big, beautiful house, and LA. I wasn't going there. And I moved to Texas, and I moved into a small little like 25 square foot trailer, and I started a community garden and started putting my hands literally in the dirt. I started planting and digging and moving soil, and this is my daily practice. So besides the meditation and the reading and the studying and the all the breath work, doing that with the earth. And it was through that process that I realized, well, besides the fact that I felt so much better and I was healing myself, and finally feeling the contours of my identity, my true identity, I realized I was like, I want to do this more. I don't want to go back into the city and be further, separated from myself and nature. And I realized as even when I was a kid, part of the trauma was, I think, having grown up, been born and raised until I was about 4 or 5 in New Mexico, big, beautiful, expansive nature in the skyline and all of the sunsets and all the things, and then to be brought and put into New York City. Such a shock, such a traumatic experience that I did not understand until later, because I had just gotten to adapt. We adapt. We're adaptive. So I'm
Yeah.
in New York, and I just had to become a New Yorker. So it was like survival, and I had to change myself and grow up to learn to survive that environment. And but I think deep down inside, I was always missing
Mm.
um, nature. I was missing being connected to what was, more natural to me. And so as I began to make this transition, I realized I wanted to just live for the rest of my life in nature, and that's when I didn't want to do it alone. That was the other thing, because I was pretty much flying totally solitary at this time, and I decided I wanted love. I wanted a partner. I wanted to have a family, and I realized I could not move on and start dating again, because I tried. And every time I tried, I was like, the old patterns started to come back. And I realized whatever relationship I get into, I'm going to end up playing out the same things until they're settled, until they're learned. And so I realized I needed to reach out to my ex, and I needed to settle with her. Why not? Let's get it done so that we can both move on, free of whatever karmic ties that we hadn't settled. And so I reached back out to her, and I said, "Look, I know you're mad at me, and I know I suck, but things have changed, and I'd like an opportunity to heal." And she was, as whereas she before she was blocking me on everything and ignoring me. In this moment, she felt something different, and she said, "Okay, like I'm interested. I'd like to see for myself." And that's when I began the process of winning back my sweetheart.
Which is an amazing story that I got amazing details and over dinner at your place not too long ago, and holy smokes, it's basically another set of work that you talked about in rediscovering yourself, um, that you and Jordan went through in rediscovering one another, and it is very, very, very beautiful.
Well,
I
what I realize is that my healing is her healing, right? We heal each other, and that's collective, right? Because
Yeah.
when she sees me stepping into my higher self, it relaxes her nervous system so that she can, give of me, and it's a mutual exchange of, up leveling. So yeah.
To me, that's where I was going with that, is like, and the punchline of that sort of rediscovery of your love, it seemed somehow to bring both of you into a new chapter together, separately, because what is it, the what's the Gibran quote, the oak and the cypress do not grow in the shadow of one another, they're separate, and yet you guys are still together. Is that Gibran? I don't know. I'm losing my
I don't know that
references
one.
there. But so I'm curious now, how this your hands are in the earth. One of the things that I know about you is a project called Earth Speed, and I know there was a lot of not public facing hands in the dirt for years. There was the 25 square foot trailer, there was the community garden, then there was the farm, and now together, I'm wondering if you can describe this new project, the way that you're thinking about doing projects that have any sort of a media sensibility, and toward what end you would engage in that kind of stuff, because it seems like you got a new life.
Yeah. So long story short, I ended up finally um, winning my ex girlfriend back, and I invited her to come live on land with me, and she sent me a picture of something that she had drawn in a ceremony of what she wanted to manifest, and it was a farm. And I was like, this is destined, right? And so we we took some time, we healed, we decided to try again to be together, except in different on different terms. Instead of being in a long distance open relationship, we decided we were going to be in a closed, committed relationship. And we ended up finding a beautiful 46-acre ranch outside of Austin. We got married. I mean, these are all detailed stories that, I'm trying to like
Oh
breeze
no,
through. But yeah, so we bought 46 acres, and for the past 2 years, we've been here for 2 years. I've just been an apprentice of the earth, learning permaculture and doing a lot of experimentation, and really just being observant and taking notes to see how nature is working, how it works, so that I can work with it, so I can dance with it. A lot of times developers come in and they want to impose their will, so they pour a bunch of concrete and they force their design into a space, and then you get New York City, then you get a city, right, where there's nothing natural, it's all controlled. And energetically, that's, does it creates people like I was. And so I realize I want to share this with people. And in fact, a lot of the things that I've been learning, I got from other people, from people who've posted videos on YouTube or on the internet. Like, I literally seek out the wisdom of farmers on the internet, who are doing this work, who are homesteading, who are cultivating land, who are raising chickens, cattle, whatever. So part of part of my contribution back to that collective pool of wisdom and information, I wanted to start creating videos to um, for people to learn. Even though I'm not an expert, so I don't have much specifically like practical to share. But getting better. But what I do have is potentially the ability to inspire people to think twice about how they live, and to consider a lifestyle in the cadence of nature over a lifestyle in the cadence of escape and indulgence.
Mhm. All right, now we have to say more about that, because this is that not everyone can leave New York City and go buy a farm. So let's get practical for a minute. What is the message that you're sending out there? It's not about the farm, or is it? Or it's not about, is it about individual journey? Is it about, being kind to the earth? Is it environmental? Like, how would you sort of couch the message that or the collective wisdom that you're trying to impart, that you've gained over the last, this sort of transformation that we've been talking about?
Yeah, it's not all about buying a farm and living some idyllic Instagram worthy image of a homesteader.
I don't know.
Right.
It's pretty picturesque. I've been there. It's hard not to take some
But
pictures.
it also hands me my ass every day. Like, I'm
Yeah.
a failure. I am a full on failure out here. Like, get I get very few things right, and that's part of the learning journey. But what it has done is it's opened me up to a much deeper appreciation for what it means to grow food, what it means to bring food to your plate. And I think ultimately what I'm promoting is more sensitivity,
Mm.
more empathy. And you can have, and for a long time I thought empathy was in my head. I empathize because I care about the nature, because it's beautiful, because really I like the way it looks. I didn't know anything about nature. How can you empathize with something if you don't know it? So, if not full on living in nature, if you can, and I would argue that I think more people can than it seems, because
Yeah.
right now there's a lot of people that are owning a lot more than they really can use for themselves. So if you, like, perhaps you can't afford to buy something, but there are opportunities for you to join a community, or volunteer, or even find a job within this industry and come work land. It does exist if you want it. I just
Mm,
think that people are very accustomed to the convenience and the ease of modern city culture,
sure.
and this is not the most fun lifestyle. It's a lot of work. You get a lot of calluses. It's backbreaking. It's grueling. So I would say it's less about not everybody can. Oh, well, I have to get a job, or I have to work, or this. Like, there's a lot of excuses, but it's more just there's a resistance to it, because throughout evolution, we've convinced ourselves that we don't want to be the migrant worker. We don't want to be working the soil. We want to move to the city and be fancy and wear suits and cocktail dresses and have Uber Eats. We've convinced ourselves of that. Nothing wrong with all that stuff, but what did we let? I feel like we threw the baby out with the bathwater. What did we
Mm-hmm.
abandon within ourselves for the opportunity to be fancy, for the
It's
opportunity to
really,
go to clubs?
yeah. Is it really about just breadth and understanding? And like, I remember a lot of the essence of the last conversation we had when we were together was about connection, connecting with yourself, connecting with people that you care deeply about, or you've been, you know, struggling to reconnect with. And, in many ways, that's part of your story with Jordan. Connecting with, your true authentic self, connecting with the land. Even if you live in New York, what I hear you saying is that you don't have to like write off New York, but have you ever really spent time connecting with Mother Earth? Because, you know, Broadway is not actually Earth. I mean, Madison Avenue is not actually, I mean, it's on planet Earth technically, but that's not connecting with the Earth. And so, is what you're really asking here, or is your new project really about connection, or is this me ascribing something that's not really there?
No, absolutely. Nature connection is, I think, uh, it's an opportunity to get closer to self, and I say, like, we are emergent beings from nature. We're inseparable, but we've
Yeah.
convinced ourselves that somehow there's the nature over there. And this happens with environmentalism. I'm an UN environment ambassador, and it's frankly a bunch of bullshit in which we think we're going to go save the earth. How? You think you have a design that is as complex and as resilient as nature itself? Oh, you're going to come in with your carbon capture scheme and plan? First, get into nature and realize that nature knows well beyond any scheme or idea. If you and try and plant something, and it'll be proof, because you think you know how to plant something, and it's going to tell you, oh no, actually you forgot this little element, you forgot that. And forget about, oh, plant something and put water on it. It's like, now go under the soil and all the complexity there with all the nutrients and the different microbes and the fungus and all the things that are happening and all the insects that you didn't know existed. So I guess the idea is get closer to nature as a way to get closer to yourself and remember how much wisdom you have, that is in your body, that is in your sentient intuition. And that will, I think, guide the decisions you make, even if you are in the city, right? I'm not saying
Hmm.
you
Yeah, this
have
is
to
not about
live
not being
in
in
a
the city.
teepee, right? And take
Yeah,
a
this is
permaculture
about
course,
connection.
for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
take a permaculture course, and that will inform how you do business, how you start, a business, or how you are with your children. how
Mm.
you deal with your kids when they're being unruly, for example. So it's just really about increasing sensitivity,
Increasing
increasing
sensitivity.
sensitivity.
So you're living on a farm. You uh, found an amazing partner in life, and you're working the land. Um, I know that well, first of all, I saw you finish the chicken coop in the dark, which is pretty nice. Good
Finally.
job. Is this is this the long term future? Yours?
I mean, I got to tell you, I I want to quit all the time. I do. I have so much self-doubt because this shit is hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard. And I know that I'm committed, but I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm going to fail. Uh, and and that's okay. Like I don't know what the far out future has in store for me, but I'm here and I'm breathing through the struggles and the
Is it
early mornings and
is
the
it
cold.
cold? Is this
Oh, and then now it's
a
cold. Today it's
our
cold.
today's cold? Yeah, it snowed here in Seattle today, so I'm I guess projecting a little bit. But is the failure that you have on a daily basis in on the farm, how does that compare to public failures or a movie not getting the reviews that it needs, or your performance on Broadway, or like, are these is private failure somehow different, better, worse than public?
Well, one thing I can say is here I feel that I am in service to the earth, as opposed to the other that you were mentioning is I was in service to myself. I
Mm.
failed, so and there's something just you know is fundamentally dirty about that. Like, oh, I didn't get the award, or I didn't get the successful whatever, and here it's like if I don't do well, it's like I feel like I need to, and I need to get better at it so that I can um, be successful in protecting this place and stewarding this place. So, sad story. Um, One of our dogs got out of her pen and killed a few chickens. Yeah, and that's natural, right? That's like it's within her instinct to do that. But I feel like I failed because we lost a couple chickens. So instead of giving up and being like, oh, I can't do these chicken things and like sell the chickens, and now I go to the you know local, I buy it from the supermarket. I'm just charged with growing and getting better so that I can better protect my chickens, and so that I can learn how to I can learn more about my dog and learn how the hell she got out of the pen, because there's so much detail to learn. So that just gives me an opportunity to level up and do better. But I'm called to just evolve and get better and learn. So when you say is this it? Like, yeah, I'm not leaving because there's so much more to learn.
Mm.
And I doubt I'm going to stop learning anytime soon. Like, till the day I die, I'll be learning. And the
Is
other
that the
last
new?
thing,
No,
my
no, keep going.
my forget about the fact that my friend group has changed. My farmers are my friends now, but my I have mentors. I have elders in my life that I never had before. I have father figures who are fifth, sixth generation farmers, homesteaders, who are so happy to teach me and like come and help me. And I never had that before.
Mhm.
Like the guys in my, like the adult figures in my life, as I said before, were destructive. They're teaching me, you know, ways to, just like be worse. But also they were out for themselves ultimately. They didn't really care. And I think we've lost a tradition in our culture where old people are old and they get put in old age homes. They're not elders anymore. There was a time when we revered and appreciated what they had to offer, knowing that they had wisdom and that we needed to download. We needed them to pass down that wisdom so that we could could apply it in our lives going forward and then teach our kids. But I never had any of that. No one, no adult ever like wanted to teach me. And now I feel actually sometimes I have, um, when I'm out there and I fuck up and I'm like failing at something, there's inside me there's this resentment where I'm like, I'm mad. Where was my dad to teach me this shit? Like, where was he? And it's that wound, that core wound of abandonment that I had when I was a kid that comes up because I realized I wouldn't have to work as hard, or I would at least have the support of an adult, of warm, caring, adult masculine, divine masculine to care for me. And so I get to break that cycle by learning and stepping into hopefully fatherhood myself so that I can now be the father that I never had. And I'm learning that from other elders. I love this culture because of that reason.
Mhm.
There's like that lineage passed down.
There's there's a dramatic lack of this knowledge changing hands because of there's really very few, if any, rites of passage in our culture. There's
Yep.
the I think a combination of rites of passage and a lack of an elder structure that is so present in so many other cultures that is this one of the things that you're interested in bringing back? You just said that that's one of the reasons you want to have a family. um, I'm wondering if you can give any advice for someone who's listening that didn't have that. Is their choice, or are you recommending that they seek out elders? What's the advice, or are you skeptical of giving that?
Yeah, well, I'll say there are so many older people out there craving, dying, like literally dying from loneliness, dying because they don't have anything to offer or share and that they feel no one's valuing them. People who are put in old age homes or are left alone die at a faster rate than people who are in community. So if you want to do something right for the world and for yourself, go just listen and download, get a lot of information from somebody who's, I promise you, wanting to share, wanting to bestow, and pass down what they know. And I promise when you listen and when you are open to receiving, you will not only inevitably learn something valuable, some, really important wisdom, but there will be a sense of connection and lineage
Mhm.
passed down that will give you life force and will give them life force to carry on to and I think, and if you don't have that in you, we come from broken families a lot in this culture.
Mhm.
I mean, go volunteer at an old age home, read books, or don't even read, listen, just listen, talk, and share. um but yeah, it definitely, there's something so nourishing about having, Yeah, surrogate grandpa, surrogate grandparents and parents.
Well, let me help me land this plane. So, this show is whatever 13 years running, and it has crossed a very large arc of interesting characters, a lot of wisdom. It was initially a very selfish project because I wanted to learn from the world's best in every discipline, and I found that if I could speak to the people who are the best in the world across a number of disciplines, that I would hopefully learn something. And what I learned is, I guess, the macro is that there are patterns across the people who have become the best in the world at whatever it is they are doing. And where I'm going with this is a lot of the rationale of the show, and I think a lot of rationale of pop culture, even well-intending media, such as this and others, is has been a path to success. And I've shared with my listenership, and I shared with you and Jordan, that I'm working on a new book. And there's some piece of the book, which is, if early on we were pursuing survival, and then we got pretty good at survival, the next thing on the list of shit to do for humans was success. And that had a lot to do with industrialization. And now success is virtually a formula. If you can do, put in a handful of inputs and then success. But where we're lacking is in fulfillment. And so I'm chasing this script, this storyline in my writing right now, and it can't help but sound, I don't have the right word. It sounds sort of trite or shitty, like, oh great, yeah. So I'm going to try and write a script here very quickly. Okay, Adrian, Chase. Yeah, nice to know that being white and male and rich is not all it's cracked up to be, and you should should leave and move to the country, and, as you said, make life hard and get calluses and fail more often, even if the failure is less public. And that's really where all the good stuff is. So help help me. I mean, help me land the plane, because that's not what we're what I'm certainly what I'm not trying to say, and I don't think it's what you're trying to say. And so for someone who's listening and is saying, okay, yeah, just give me a little bit of success, give me a little bit more money, a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
status, and then I'll make the decision from it. I'm sure I'll decide exactly as you have, but let me try on a little bit of this rich and famous for a while. What can we help anyone who's listening, who's thinking that right now? What could you
Well,
hand them that helps them understand this? That's not really the destination.
I'll tell you, rich and famous ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay.
Although y'all out there have an easier time to become rich and famous because I'm out of the game. So you got one less
one less one less gangster to deal
competition.
with.
But I guess what I'm picking up on from this is rites of passage. This is part of an infinite game, and people will fall and fail and make mistakes. And even if success is the mistake, that's okay. Like I'm not here to tell everyone they have to get it right the first time, i.e., out of the womb, come live on a farm. Like go taste the spoils of life and make mistakes and hurt people. I hurt a lot of people. Go do it and learn your own lessons. Um, I guess I'm becoming the elder, and in many ways, not only am I older, almost 50 now, but that's what happens. We just start to try and share this wisdom to youngsters who don't listen, and that's okay. But at least we're here to in earnest share. And yeah, I don't I guess you don't expect your kids to necessarily, and not to belittle all of you guys out there. I'm sure you're all old too, and many of you, but just just the idea that we can start to listen to one another and let these wisdoms just wash over us. And that's what you do in nature,
Yeah.
right? Nature is a rite of passage. You go into it and it's not an end. There's no beginning, middle, and end. Oh, I've learned nature. I'm out. I'm done now. No, you go frequently because there's always new information that washes over you, new rites of passage where and if you're in a business and you want to be successful, I promise, take one of your challenges, one thing that you're working on, bring it to nature, and nature will give you something great to come back to the city with. So for me, it's just about playing that infinite game, getting into the ride, the dance of life, and adding another tool to your tool belt, which is connecting and feeling into yourself as nature.
Adrian, thanks for being on the show, bud.
Take
It's
care,
your
everybody.
journey and being willing to share. It means a lot to me personally, but I think this is the kind of stuff that the show that I am wanting to produce this is what I want it to be known for: real, honest narratives. So thank you very much. Until next time, and until I see you, and for everyone out there in the world, would you want to point them somewhere? Do you have a website
Yes.
for your farm?
Well, please check out Earthspeed. Earthspeed on the socials and YouTube, and more to come on that. I'm actually going to be building a media company, so we're going to be creating short form content and longer form content around nature lifestyle.
Awesome. Until next time, from Adrian and I, ciao.